Peace, blessings, and good health to all. Welcome to another live stream of GOCC Fit for the Gathering of Christ Church, where we talk all things health, fitness, and nutrition related. I'm your host, certified nutritionist, personal trainer, and health coach, elder and brother Rawchaa. And I pray you brothers and sisters out there are with blessed health today. As you can see, our topic of discussion here on right here in view, all things fiber. All things fiber. Very, very important discussion we have for you brothers and sisters when it comes to fiber, something that not too many people are familiar with, or maybe there are some misconceptions out there when it comes to fiber, but probably something that's very rarely discussed when we talk about health. And some numbers that we're going to share this evening is going to confirm that this is not really a discussed topic for health. So very, very important that we have this conversation today. Before we get started, let us go ahead and get the scripture for our GOCC Fit series. What do we have here? We're in the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus. It's in the King James Version Apocrypha. Chapter 30, verse 15. It reads, "Health and good estate of body are above all gold, and a strong body above infinite wealth." Right? So basically, in so many words, what the scripture is telling us is that there's really nothing you're going to find on this earth that's more valuable than our health. And if we are serious about our health, then we will be looking to the earth for our health, meaning we'll be looking for food from the earth as well as medicine from the earth for our healing. When we go outside of that and things become processed, things become industrialized, things become synthesized in a laboratory, that's now when we start to find ourselves in bad case when it comes to physical health. And of course, there's a spiritual component when it comes to health, when it comes to following the Bible, following the scriptures, following the righteousness set up by the Creator, the Most High God Almighty. He's given us here, we see in this Bible. All right. And you also have a mental side to health. You also have an emotional side to health. But what we're going to deal with today is more so on the nutrition side. All right. Diet, what we're consuming and putting into our bodies. So now back to what we have here. And that is the discussion on all things fiber. Now, we went over a lot of the vitamins, pretty much majority, if not all, at least the most known vitamins and minerals in times past. The micronutrients. From the micronutrients, we then went over to the macronutrients, where we talked about fats, protein, and carbohydrates or carbs, right? And so fiber would actually fit under macro, and it would fit under the macro of, let me pull it up here. It would fit under the macro of carbohydrates. So fiber is actually a carbohydrate. We had a live stream that we did, I'm not sure how long ago, but it's probably been at least around a year or more. All things macro, we discussed carbohydrates. So this is kind of a continuation of the carbohydrate conversation. But when we talk about fiber, it is a more particular type of carbohydrate, right? It's a carbohydrate that doesn't really give you energy, but it does serve a very, very important part of the metabolic process for our bodies nonetheless. All right. So it's actually what you would say a good carb. Not that the carbs aren't good, don't have a good place within our diet, but really for the most part, carbs can become problematic because we are over consuming carbs, and a lot of times they're refined or ultra processed carbs. Basically, they lack the nutrients in them that can actually be beneficial to go along with the energy that they're supposed to provide. So macronutrients are supposed to provide the energy, the calories. And so fiber being part of carbohydrates, we're going to discuss exactly, how fiber fits within the carbohydrate family. So let's go ahead and pull up our first piece of information we have here. We're going over to healthline.com. What does fiber do for your body? Certain types of fiber may benefit the health of your body, including your gut microbiome, blood sugar, and the walls of your colon. Fiber is one of the main reasons whole plant foods are good for you. Growing evidence shows that eating adequate amounts of fiber may benefit your digestion and reduce your risk of chronic disease. Many of these benefits are mediated by your gut microbiota, the millions of bacteria that live in your digestive system. However, not all fiber is created equal. Different types have different health effects. This article reviews the different types of fiber and their evidence-based health benefits. So first of all, we have to understand what is fiber. So what are the different types of fiber? Non-digestible carbohydrates found in foods are collectively known as fiber. So first thing we have to understand, again, fiber is considered to be a carbohydrate, but unlike the carbohydrates that we're used to hearing about or that we know about, fiber is non-digestible. Okay, meaning you're not using this for energy, you in particular, but it doesn't mean that it's not being used for energy in your body in other ways. We're going to get to that. But it is not digestible, meaning that it passes through the stomach into the intestinal tract where it is beneficial for a purpose. We're going to get to that purpose here in a moment. So that's first thing we must know about fiber and what fiber is. So fiber is typically characterized as either soluble fiber or insoluble fiber. So what is soluble fiber? So let's first understand what soluble fiber is. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and can be metabolized by the good bacteria in the gut. So the first thing we have to understand, probably the most important aspect of consuming fiber, is that fiber, in this case, soluble fiber, feeds the bacteria in your gut. It's food for your gut, not for necessarily for you, meaning that it's not energy that's metabolized that's going to be used for, like, for instance, your muscle movement, your motor movement, things like that, involuntary movement. But the microbiome, which is the bacteria in your intestines, your gut flora, all right, they're alive, right? Bacteria is a living organism, and you're actually composed of about 10 times more bacteria than you are of human cells. So majority of the organisms in your body are in the gut, right? And so we have to really focus on the gut when we're talking about having good health. Well, you can't have good health if you're not feeding the gut, if you're not feeding the bacteria in your gut. If the bacteria is not getting the food that it needs to eat, it's then going to look for other means to eat, which then would lead to it eating and consuming you, which is what we don't want. We don't want the gut to consume itself. So now this is now leading into gut issues, all type of problems in the gut, leaky gut, diarrhea, constipation, all these different types of gut issues, irritable bowel syndrome, all these different issues that now understanding how the gut is the really sole key important factor for our health. And this is why this conversation is very important that we're having tonight when we talk about this, because this is something that is a big part of why the world, but in primary, the United States, is in a health crisis. It's because of lack of fiber. Okay, so we can't stress this anymore about how important the fiber is for good bacteria, right? Feeding, development, growth, and health. Right? They have to be fed like anything else that's alive, has to be fed or it dies. And if your gut is dying, you're dying. Right? If the bacteria in your gut aren't there in the population and the way they need to be, you're going to have overgrowth of bad bacteria. You're going to have parasites. You're going to have all these different things happening. You're going to have bad immune system, autoimmune issues, pretty much anything that you can think of, cancer that comes with having bad health is because there's something going on in the gut. So we'll talk more about the gut, in probably future live streams and focus more on the gut. But we could, the foundation, one of the foundational things of the gut, we have to talk about fiber. So that's the soluble fiber. Soluble fiber dissolves in water. Insoluble fiber is the other type of fiber. It does not dissolve in water. All right. So we'll get more into the soluble and insoluble fibers later, but just giving you basic understanding before we build on this topic of all things fiber. It says a more helpful way to categorize fiber is as fermentable versus non-fermentable, which refers to whether friendly gut bacteria can use it or not. So bacteria ferments things. We're going to talk about it later. We talked about the kefir, milk kefir. So what is milk kefir? Milk kefir is fermented milk that is fermented by kefir grains. So the kefir grains are bacteria. The kefir grains are yeast. Okay, so this bacteria and yeast feed on the lactose, which is a carbohydrate in the milk. So the same way that the milk kefir is feeding on that carb, the bacteria in our gut feeds on fiber and it ferments it. So the soluble fiber is fermented in our gut. So this, with fermentation comes gas. So this is the reason why you start, think about it, flatulence and all these things that are happening in the gut is because of the exchange of the digestion and sometimes the lack thereof of these fibers. And the non-fermentable fiber would be like your insoluble fiber. So this fiber cannot be digested, right? So it refers to whether friendly gut bacteria can use it or not. Okay. Keep in mind, there are many different types of fiber. Some of them have important health benefits, while others are mostly useless. There is also a lot of overlap between soluble and insoluble fibers. Some insoluble fibers can be digested by the good bacteria in the intestine, and most foods contain both soluble and insoluble fibers. Right? The amount of fiber you should consume differs worldwide and by age group. All right, so we're going to get into a lot of, breaking this stuff down, so don't worry about it. We're about to go all the way in, hopefully answer majority of, if not all, your questions when it comes to understanding fiber. Current recommendations are approximately 25 to 30 grams or more per day. So you say 25 or 30 grams or more per day. That doesn't sound like a lot, but just wait and we'll see if that's a lot or not. Fiber feeds the good bacteria in your gut. The bacteria that live in your body outnumber the body's cells 10 to 1. So I think it's like 10 trillion. And I'm just going off the top of my head. I can't remember if it's like 10 trillion human cells that are in the body. So there's 10 times more bacteria in the body. So you're talking about 100 trillion bacteria cells, or 100 trillion bacteria living in the body compared to 10 trillion human cells. Okay. So we have to understand there's a large population of bacteria in our body, and that bacteria, that population has to be fed. Think about a population in society. What happens when you don't feed the population? It becomes chaotic. It becomes a riot. Well, it's no different than what's happening in your body. So when you're not feeding the good gut bacteria in your body, it becomes a riot. It becomes chaos in your body, right? So now, bacteria live on the skin, in the mouth, and in the nose, but the great majority live in the gut, primarily the large intestine. Approximately 500 to 1,000 different species of bacteria live in your intestines, totaling about 38 trillion cells. These gut bacteria are known as the gut flora. This is not a bad thing. In fact, there is a mutually beneficial relationship between you and some of the bacteria that live in your digestive system. Okay? So these bacteria in your gut have a purpose. They have a job, right? A big part of their job is to keep you healthy. So you want to have a good relationship with the bacteria in your stomach. When that relationship is damaged, like any other relationship that you have a relationship with someone in your life that you know, when that relationship is damaged, depending on if you all are interacting on a high level, it's going to be a lot of friction. So we want to make sure that the relationship between us and our good bacteria are on a good level. All right. So you provide food, shelter, and a safe habitat for the bacteria. In return, they take care of some things that the human body cannot do on its own. So pretty much this bacteria runs your body. Okay. It pretty much runs everything in your body. Everything is basically dictated off of this gut bacteria. Doesn't discount the fact of the importance of organs like the brain or the heart or the liver or the kidneys. Okay. But if you want those things to function properly, you better have your gut functioning properly, or those things aren't going to be able to, they're going to be dysfunctional. Okay. They're going to be out of alignment with how your body is functioning. Of the many different kinds of bacteria, some are crucial for various aspects of your health, including weight, blood sugar control, immune function, brain function. So are not these some of the biggest things that we're struggling with as a society when we talk about our health? Weight, okay? Here in America, the most obese and overweight country in the world. You travel the world, you'll see it. The other countries in the world, you don't see the disproportionate nature of obesity. Well, a part of that obesity comes from the lack of fiber in the diet, because fiber actually causes you to become more full. And then if you're eating fiber-rich foods, you're going to get the micronutrients that are going to also feed the cells. So therefore your body doesn't feel hungry, and then your body's not constantly looking to eat, and it's eating and eating and eating, but you're just getting macronutrients. You're not getting the micro. The macro is the calories. So now you're just getting a bunch of calories, which is then causing your body to have to figure out what to do with all this energy that it's not being burnt. Well, it stores it as fat. And then here comes obesity. So this is where fiber comes in to help balance, to help keep you full, so that you're not looking to eat all the time. What else do we have? Blood sugar control, diabetes. So probably, two of the biggest issues, which then lead to heart disease, which is the number one issue, said to be the number one issue of health problems in America, right? Weight, blood sugar control, diabetes. So you want to control yourself from going into a diabetic state or having a diabetic status. You must focus and make sure that fiber is a focus, that you're getting that in your diet and knowing where to get it, how to get it. Immune function. So again, if your gut determines your immune system, majority of the immune system, and you're not feeding the gut what it needs for energy, what it needs to operate to do its job, now you're going to have autoimmune issues. Okay. You're going to have issues that are considered to be called food allergies, to where you eat certain things and your body reacts as if it's something bad. And now your body's attacking itself, which is also autoimmune, or food allergies. Right? You're not feeding the gut. What also happens is leaky gut. So now the gut flora, or the microbiome, eats itself, and it causes holes in the intestinal lining, and now things are leaking into your bloodstream, and now your immune system is going crazy with this stuff coming in, attacking all this stuff, attacking your body, because all it sees is threats coming from everywhere. So you would say, okay, this is an allergic reaction I'm having, and really you have a gut issue. Okay, you fix the gut, you fix your allergies, you fix your autoimmune, so on and so forth. Brain function. So what's said to connect with the gut? The brain. What's said to connect with the brain? The gut. What is the gut also oftentimes referred to? The second brain. So there's a connection between your gut and your brain. There's a nerve that runs through from your brain to your gut, all through your body. It's called the vagus nerve. All right. Majority of the vagus nerve endings are in your gut. So if your gut is on fire, it's inflamed, it's not healthy. Now that nerve is in a fight or flight, or in the sympathetic mode, towards always turned on, when you need that nerve to be balanced, right? You need the parasympathetic to help balance that nerve. So again, you can have brain issues. You're going to have mental instability. You're going to have Alzheimer's, all these different brain things, inflammation on the brain, all this different stuff's going to be happening in your brain. So I want people to really understand, when you see this in itself, you realize the importance of how fiber plays in our health. Okay. What does fiber have to do with feeding gut bacteria? Yes, you may wonder what this has to do with fiber. Just like any other organism, bacteria need to eat to get energy to survive and function. The problem is that most carbs, proteins, and fats are absorbed into the bloodstream before they make it to the large intestine, leaving little for the gut flora. So what happens is, when you eat, the digestion process starts in the mouth. The saliva already is breaking down your food. As your food travels down your esophagus into your stomach, now there is the acid in your stomach that is now digesting the food. All right. So the digestion process is now taking to the next level in the stomach. So you're already starting to get in the position of absorption. Matter of fact, the absorption is already starting in the mouth to some degree. So then as it's going through the body, it's being absorbed all through the whole process. So there's some absorption that happens in the stomach. Then from there, it's passed into the small intestine. All right. So the small intestine is doing a lot of digestion and absorption. So then by the time whatever is left gets to your gut, there's nothing there for the bacteria to eat, unless it's fiber. See, fiber cannot be digested in the pathways that we have just mentioned, through the process of coming into the mouth, through the esophagus, into the stomach, into the small intestine. The fiber is not being absorbed. It cannot be absorbed in that pathway, through those few stages right there. So now the fiber passes through the small intestine into the large intestine, and now the bacteria are ready to eat. But what happens when you're not having any fiber coming into the large intestine for the bacteria to eat? Like we said earlier, it becomes chaos. It becomes gut problems, all types of issues now. You see? So that's what has to be understood here. So it says, this is where fiber comes in. Human cells don't have the enzymes to digest fiber, so it reaches the large intestines relatively unchanged. See that? So our cells, in all of what we just mentioned before we get to the large intestine, they can't do nothing with fiber. It just keeps passing through those different stages, that process, into the large intestine. So now when it gets to the large intestine, now it's time for the bacteria to go to work to deal with that. feeds the bacteria, right? It now is helping with now whatever the elimination process is there now from what's left over that cannot be used by the body to be excreted out of the body. Well, this fiber now is packed into this waste to give the waste its form and its bulk. So then you start having issues if this isn't if this process is disturbed because the fiber's not there. You start having issues like diarrhea, constipation, on and on. You start having elimination issues. Okay. But the biggest part is your bacteria is not being fed. It says, however, intestinal bacteria do not have the enzymes to digest many of these fibers. This is the most important reason that some dietary fibers are essential for health. They feed the good bacteria in the intestine, functioning as prebiotics. So many people that know about probiotics. Probiotics are the good bacteria. And they take probiotics and they do the probiotics, and they do the probiotics. Well, what good does taking all the probiotics and having all the bacteria in the body, and you got a huge population of bacteria, but you're not feeding it. You're not feeding the population. You have a lot of citizens. You want to have a big city, and you invite all the citizens into the city because you want your city to flourish, but then so they can work. But then you're not going to feed your citizens. What's going to happen to your city? Your city is going to become chaotic and be destroyed by the citizens, right? So this is where prebiotics come in. This is where the fiber comes in. So you have to have both. Yes, you want to continue to feed the gut the good probiotics, right? And you want to continue to actually feed now those probiotics or that good bacteria so that they can continue to be alive and thrive, right? Thrive and be alive, continue to grow, right? You don't want them to die. You want them to flourish. Got to feed them. In this way, they promote the growth of good gut bacteria, which can have various positive effects on health. The friendly bacteria produce nutrients for the body, including short-chain fatty acids such as acetate, propionate, and butyrate, in which butyrate appears to be crucial. So this is the next thing that we will need to look into, but not for today, is short-chain fatty acids, right? The SCFAs, which are said to be super crucial and healthy for your body, but they cannot be created without the bacteria being fed. These nutrients feed the body. These short-chain fatty acids, crucial, critical. These short-chain fatty acids can feed the cells in the colon, leading to reduced gut inflammation and improvements in digestive disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. And there are many, many digestive disorders and gut issues, more that can be named, right? So, and everybody's situation is different. So we have to now, when you're having some type of issue with the gut, we now have to take a look and examine, okay, what is the actual gut issue to see how to address it. Throwing fiber at the situation may not necessarily be what's going to help. But I would say, generally speaking, for most people, it's because of lack of fiber. Some people may need a gut reset and then build back the gut after it's been healed through things like fasting, right? Flushing, detoxing. These things then begin to heal the body, allow it to rest and heal. And then you build back the gut by bringing forth the good bacteria into the gut, bringing in the prebiotics or the fiber to feed the bacteria. There may be other things going on, like the liver or the gallbladder or the pancreas, that could be causing gut issues with digestion. So it's not just a one size fits all where fiber is the end all for gut issues. So I want to make sure that's clear, because I think some people may believe that fiber is, when you have a gut issue, because of lack of fiber. That's not always the case, but more than likely would be the case for most people. It says here, when the bacteria ferment the fiber, they also produce gases. This is why high fiber diets can cause flatulence and stomach discomfort in some people. These side effects usually go away with time as your body adjusts. All right. We have here certain types of fiber can help you lose weight by reducing your appetite. So very, very important when it comes to weight reduction. So we have the having a healthy gut, and now we're dealing with the second big thing, which is weight. Probably two things that most people deal with, especially if you're in America, is gut issues and weight issues. So now let's keep going here. What do we have? It says, in fact, recent studies show that increasing dietary fiber can cause weight loss by automatically reducing calorie intake. Fiber can soak up water in the intestines, slowing the absorption of nutrients and increasing feelings of fullness. So fiber slows the digestion process down. So when you have a lot of fiber in your diet, the food digests slower. The absorption happens slower, which guess what? Is going to make you feel fuller longer. And if you're eating nutrient-dense foods that have a lot of nutrients in them, the micronutrients, your body's getting that what it needs. So it's not going to be hungry for lack of nutrients. You see that? And then you're not always feeling hungry. You feel full. You feel satisfied. You feel like you don't have to eat as much. It says, however, this depends on the type of fiber. Some types have no effect on weight, while certain soluble fibers can have a significant effect. A good example of an effective fiber supplement for weight loss is glucosamine. All right. So I'm not too familiar with glucosamine, but it is something that you all can write down, do your research. I'll definitely take a look at it as well when it comes to a good fiber for weight loss. But we are going to talk about a fiber in particular here toward the end that I recommend everybody supplement with. It says here, fiber can reduce blood sugar spikes after a high carb meal. All right. So it says high fiber foods tend to have a lower glycemic index than refined carb sources, which have been stripped of most of their fiber. So let's take a look at this. We talked about the gut. Most people have problems with. We talked about weight. Most people have problems with. We're talking about diabetes now. A lot of people have problems with diabetes, with their blood sugar. Well, a big reason for that is because of all the refined carbs. You're eating carbs that have been ultra processed, so the fiber is stripped away. And so you're eating carbs in a natural state. When you're supposed to be getting those carbs, they're supposed to come with fiber. They're supposed to be coming with the micronutrients, and those things have been stripped or damaged, right? So now you're getting something the body was never designed to get it in that way. Another problem or thing that you can make note that this happens, not only with, for instance, things like grain, because most grains are refined. So the fiber is taken out, the micronutrients are taken out, and they call it bread. That's not bread. It's called bread. It may taste like bread, but it's not bread. It's refined. Well, it's the same thing when you talk about if you are consuming a lot of smoothies. So you take fruit or you take vegetables and you blend them together in a liquid form. You now are destroying all the fiber structures within that, and you're drinking it in a liquid form. See, this is not a way our body was ever supposed to consume these things. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot have it, but it should not be the bulk of your diet. Like if you were doing a fast or something for a few days or something, that's different. But if this is what you're doing day in and day out, you are blending up all your food and drinking it, right, every day, that's problematic. Because the fiber now that you need to feed your gut is not getting there. You're not getting any fiber to feed the gut bacteria. And it's going to lead to other problems. Yeah, you may experience some benefits from that, being the fact that you're using vegetables and fruits. right? But you're going to now cause other problems. So really what we should be doing most of the time with our food is chewing it. Vegetables, fruit, most of the consumption that happens with those should be from chewing it so that we're getting it whole with the fiber intact. So then when it comes into the body, the fiber can pass through to the gut and the large intestine to be for food for the gut. So a lot of times what happens now is your blood sugar spikes. So you're drinking all these fruit smoothies without the fiber in them. Guess what? Blood sugar spike. Diabetes incoming. You see that? All these refined breads, refined carbs, okay, that aren't whole. Guess what? Blood sugar spike. Because the fiber is there to help balance that. The micronutrients are there to help balance that. So you cannot take stuff out of the equation, right? You have A plus B plus C equals D. So if A is the carbs, and then B is the fiber, and then C is the micronutrients, and you remove B and C out of the equation for D, what you're going to have at D is called a problem. It's going to be called disease. But when you have A plus B plus C there, you have the carbs with the fiber with the micronutrients, then D is going to be sustained health. That's what D is going to equal at the end of that formula. So in our society, we have a problem with our nutritional and medical world where they'll take stuff out of this equation that God has created and they'll try to extrapolate one or two things out of a very complex equation. And then they'll take it and they'll patent it. And through the patent, they'll say, oh, look at what I created. Take this for a cure. And what it causes, side effects. Because the body was never supposed to get it that way. You see? But see, the way that God created it in this natural state, you can't make money off that because it can't be patented. Everybody can then get it. Because I could just go in my backyard and grow this stuff if I wanted to. And now you can't make money off of me. But if they take it and take a couple of things from that equation and they patent it, and they say, look what I created in the lab, and then tell you it's costing thousands upon thousands of dollars, but through our insurance, you can get copay to get it. And then man seems like a brilliant genius for what he's created. He's created death in a lot of instances. All right. Not health. And this is why you have side effects when it comes to stuff like that versus when you are sticking to what's created from the earth, you're not dealing with side effects. The only side effects you may have now are from gut issues, right? Issues that you have from childhood medical procedures and things like that that's happened that's now destroyed the gut, medications that have destroyed the gut. So now when you go to eat a food that you should naturally be able to eat, let's say nuts or a vegetable or a fruit, and now you have an allergic reaction to it, that's the reason why. Not because of the food itself is bad, and sometimes the food can be having things going on with it, chemicals, pesticides, things of that nature, right? GMO that could cause the body to have a reaction to it. But when it's not that and it's organic and you're having a reaction, it's because something in the gut and the brain are wired to understand that that is bad. Something has caused your brain and your gut to work together to say that that's bad. And you have to fix that in the gut to rewire the brain so the body doesn't attack itself. Okay, so this is what happens when we get into a refined diet, which the Western diet is a refined diet. It's not a whole food diet. It's a diet refined where majority of the foods that we eat have been heavily processed, and that's the bulk of our diet. We have to get back to eating things that are more whole, right? So now, moving forward from that, it says, however, researchers believe that only high viscosity soluble fibers have this property. Okay, so we're talking about when it comes to keeping the blood sugar balanced, keeping it from spiking and having insulin resistance problems now because of this unnatural, processed, ultra-processed diet. It says, including these viscous soluble fibers in your carb-containing meals may cause smaller spikes in blood sugar. This is important, especially if you're following a high carb diet, which I don't I don't suggest anybody follow a high carb diet, but if you are, then you cannot be doing a high carb diet with no fiber, meaning that you're doing a bunch of smoothies and ultra processed carbs. That's a highway for serious sickness and worse. It says, in this case, the fiber may reduce the likelihood of the carbs raising your blood sugar to harmful levels. That said, if you have blood sugar issues, you should consider reducing your carb intake, especially your intake of low fiber refined carbs such as white flour and added sugar. What is white flour? It's refined. It's been stripped. That's why it's white. Because if you process it normally, it's not going to be white. What about added sugar? Well, that's white too. Why is it white? It's been refined. These things are being bleached. That's why when you go to the store, you get flour. It says unbleached or bleached. So you bleach it to give it a certain color. Well, guess what bleach does? Bleach destroys and sterilizes everything. So you're just getting the carbs now. That's all you're getting. Out of all the mineral or all the nutrient, profile, you're only getting one through a whole profile of nutrients. And you wonder why the doctor says you have diabetes. Adding sugar, meaning you're adding something that's refined, bleached, stripped, and you're putting it in a food where it doesn't belong. You don't see how that's problematic, right? So we have to understand this. We have to eat things in their most natural state and not be looking to mix everything together, adding sugars in places where sugar don't belong, right? Everything don't have to taste sweet. It says here, you should also talk with your doctor or dietitian. They can provide more specific recommendations for reducing blood sugar spikes, right? We talked about increasing the healthy fats, increasing the protein, decreasing the carbs. And what you do eat carbs, eat the high fiber rich foods. You see that? And then now you eliminate the possibility for the body to even go into a diabetic state, right? So fiber can reduce cholesterol levels. Viscous soluble fiber can also lower your cholesterol levels and may lower your risk of heart disease. Now, when we talk about lowering cholesterol levels, we have to understand that, there's been some modern perceptions, or should I say miseducation out there for when it comes to cholesterol. And there's a lot of those who are pushing back against the modern establishment's ideology when it comes to cholesterol, and looking more to the times of before the modern ideologies on cholesterol. So we have to understand that too. When we hear the word cholesterol, we think bad. When you understand that the brain is made of 80% cholesterol. So what happens if your brain isn't getting the cholesterol it needs? Well, the brain's not going to function. The brain's not going to grow. The brain's going to deteriorate. So anybody that, if they were to have an agenda against the brain, they would tell you cholesterol is bad. When sterol is a hormone. That's what sterol means, hormone. It's a fat. It's a lipid. So we need the lipids. Now, there's things where if the body is creating problems because of dietary reasons, and there's things in our blood, then that's not good. And if they're calling that cholesterol levels, then that's another conversation for another day. We have to just really start examining the things that we've been taught and told more in recent times and look more to the ancient times for understanding of health. Okay, but when things were more based upon diet, nutrition, and herbal, than the modern thinking, Western thinking and Western thought. But nonetheless, right, it says here that fiber also helps when it comes to not only diabetes and the blood sugar, but also other things when it comes to our blood, heart disease, blood circulation. A 2023 study in 14,505 participants found a significant reduction in LDL cholesterol after soluble fiber supplementation. In addition to lowering cholesterol levels, studies have found that increasing the intake of dietary fiber could reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So really in all of this, what we're focusing in on is the good circulatory system, a good cardiovascular system where the blood is clean, the cells aren't clumping together, right? That's really ultimately all we're really concerned with. All these sometimes fancy things, the LDL and all this type of stuff, right? We make things more difficult than we should. You just want to have a good circulatory system. So dietary fiber can help with your blood and making sure your blood is on point. Diabetic wise, so your blood sugar is on point. Circulatory wise, so that you're not dealing with heart disease, right? What else can fiber do? Fiber can help relieve constipation. Eating more high fiber foods like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains can improve your digestive health and help relieve constipation. This will increase both your soluble and insoluble fiber intake and could help relieve your problem. Foods high in soluble fiber include whole grains, fruits, and vegetables with skins, nuts, and seeds. Foods high in soluble fiber include oats, flax seeds, barley, rye, beans, root vegetables. So we're going to get more into the foods to focus in on here later when it comes to fiber. But again, I want to make sure I make mention that when it comes to constipation, constipation is a more more broader spectrum thing, that fiber in itself isn't the all to end all or cure all for constipation, but it very well could help a person who's constipated. Okay. And a lot of times, probably more times than not, it will help a person who's dealing with constipation. It's because of fiber. Okay. A lack of it in their being fed to their gut, right? To the gut flora, microbiome. It says here, fiber is believed to help absorb water, increase the bulk of stool, and speed up the movement of stool through the intestine. Okay, so by getting the proper fiber, the right fiber, in a normal situation where you don't have other issues going on in your gut, it feeds the gut bacteria so they can do their job. So then as stuff is passing through, now when it comes out, it's going to come out efficiently and effectively versus with pain. But if the citizens are angry in the gut, they're not going to do their job. Well, guess what happens to the construction? Right? Now, hey, that building that would be nicely constructed for, being presented is not there. It's more of a big mess. And so that's what's coming out of your, out of your body now. It's a big mess. That is either constipation or could be diarrhea versus a nicely structured building. It says here, in general, fiber that increases the water content of your stool has a laxative effect. You see that? So the water is there. It's a laxative. It's soft versus being hard. So that's what you want. You want your stool to be soft and you want it moving. You want your gut moving. You don't want your gut to be stagnant. You don't want your stool to be hard. This is where constipation comes in. A lot of times could be because of lack of fiber. It says, while fiber that adds to the dry mass of stool without increasing its water may have a constipating effect. So that's where sometimes fiber can be problematic for some people. Okay. If you have other issues going on that isn't fiber related, adding more fiber can cause more problems. Okay. And those are more special instances where fiber doesn't solve the problem. Okay. Where we have to go a different route and look at something else that's happening that's causing this constipation. Soluble fibers that form a gel in the digestive tract and are not fermented by gut bacteria are often effective. A good example of a gel forming fiber is psyllium. So some of you may have heard of psyllium husks. So psyllium is a fiber that forms like a gel. Okay. And it's interesting because it's a soluble fiber that's not fermented by gut bacteria. And usually soluble fibers are fermented. So psyllium is almost, it kind of almost would seem like an insoluble fiber the way it's treated by the gut. But because it dissolves in water, it makes it soluble. You see that? So it's kind of like has properties of both soluble and insoluble. So understand that not all fibers fit just perfectly into the soluble or insoluble category. But it is called soluble because it is water, dissolves in water. Flax seeds have also been shown to be effective for constipation, right? So a lot of people deal with the flax seeds and the chia seeds. They put them in their drinks and everything, which is said to help feed. That fiber is helped to pass through to help to feed the gut. Okay, and typically flax, you want to break it down into a powder because as a seed, it just passes through the body altogether and can't be used at all because of the shiny shell. So usually you can do flax seeds, you got to do the powder. Right. Choosing the right type of fiber may help with your constipation, but taking the wrong supplements can do the opposite. For this reason, you should consult with a doctor before taking fiber supplements for constipation. Fiber might reduce the risk of colorectal cancer. Recent studies have linked a high intake of fiber-rich foods with a reduced risk of colorectal cancer. However, whole, high foods like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains contain various other healthy nutrients and antioxidants that may affect cancer risk. Therefore, it's difficult to isolate the effects of fiber from other factors in healthy whole food diets. Yet, since fiber may help the colon wall, keep the colon wall healthy, many doctors believe that fiber plays an important role in preventing cancer. Eating too much fiber can cause symptoms such as bloating, gas, and constipation. This is because high amounts of fiber can make bowel movements bigger and bulkier, increasing fermentation and gas production. Too much fiber can also interfere with your body's ability to absorb nutrients such as calcium, zinc, and iron. So just like anything else, too much of anything is not the proper balance. But this is what happens when you're getting too much fiber. Drinking plenty of fluids, daily exercise, and avoiding foods that cause bloating can help your body better manage fiber and reduce uncomfortable digestive issues. On the positive side, eating too little fiber is, I think it's supposed to say better than eating too much fiber. Now, but check this out. Check this out, though. Everything has to be taken in context. The 2025 Dietary Guidelines for Americans, published by the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, found that over 90% of females and 97% of males do not eat enough fiber. That's almost everybody. Almost everybody is not eating enough fiber, and this is the reason for a lot of gut problems and a lot of health problems, a lot of obesity and overweight problems. Not enough fiber. So really, ultimately, eating too much fiber is almost like you have to go out of your way taking a bunch of fiber supplements to cause this to happen. Okay, it's virtually impossible just to eat too much fiber through diet. Okay, unless you're a vegan and all you're doing is eating vegetables all day, it's probably less likely, that's probably the only chance that you have if through diet getting too much fiber. Okay, so that's not really an issue that we're focusing on is too much. The issue we're focusing in on is not enough. People are not getting enough fiber. It says the USDA recommends that adults consume approximately 14 grams for every 1,000 calories of food. 1 second here. Now, that's what they recommend, but I would say this is higher. This should be higher. We'll get to that later, that number should be much higher, a lot higher. Takeaway. Dietary fiber has various health benefits. Not only does it feed your gut bacteria, but fermentable fiber also forms short-chain fatty acids, which nourish your colon wall. Additionally, viscous soluble fiber may reduce your appetite, lower your cholesterol levels, and decrease the rise in blood sugar after high-carb meals. If you're aiming for a healthy lifestyle, try to consume a variety of fiber types from whole fruits, vegetables, and grains. So we're gonna break a lot of this stuff down. This is just the beginning introduction to fiber. Okay, let's check a video out here real quick before we go to our next video. Because again, I mean, our next article, we're bringing in a lot of different sources just so we can see, typically you want to cross-reference and see consistency when we talk about a particular topic. So here's a doctor, Dr. Robert Lustig, right? Dr. Robert Lustig, why fiber boosts your metabolic health. So this channel is called Metabolic Health and Blood Sugar Explained. Let's check this out here.
Fiber is probably the most important nutrient you don't absorb. For years, fiber wasn't even a nutrient because you didn't absorb it. The FDA finally made a change and said, yes, we do need fiber in our diet. And they set a minimum amount of 25 grams per day. The median for America right now is 12 grams per day. We all probably should be getting about 50 grams per day. The amount of fiber you consume is inversely correlated with your risk for colon cancer. So every single thing fiber does improves your metabolic health.
So we're talking about metabolic health, your body to metabolize things, right? And so he suggested 50 grams of fiber per day is more so the amount that we should be consuming. They tell us 14, we should be consuming almost, about 3-4 times that amount with 50. And this is for somebody who doesn't have major gut issues. If you have major gut issues that fiber is going to cause a problem for, then you got to fix that first. But for a normal person, 50 is what we should be shooting for. So now we have Houston Methodist leading medicine here. And it says 7 benefits of fiber that should convince you to eat enough of it. It says fiber likely isn't the first line item you look for on a food nutrition label. Perhaps your eyes instead search for added sugars or total carbohydrates, especially if you're trying to watch your blood glucose levels. Or maybe you look at the protein content if you're trying to help your muscles recover after a hard workout. And while a food's fiber content doesn't need to be the first thing you examine, you're not doing yourself any favors if you ignore it. Here's why. Most adults don't consume anywhere close to consuming enough fiber each day. Only about 5% of men and 9% of women meet the daily fiber recommendations set by the National Academy of Medicine, says Amanda Beaver, a wellness dietitian at Houston Methodist. And if we're talking about 50 grams, you probably have 1%. It goes even lower, less than 1%. This is a serious shortcoming since, as Beaver points out next, fiber benefits your health in many ways. So, of course, we've mentioned some of these things, just again, cross-referencing here. First thing we can take from fiber is the gut, the microbiome, the bacteria, right? How it helps feed the gut, plays an important role in your GI health. Okay. promotes regular bowel movements. Okay. So fiber can help with both diarrhea and constipation to help balance it out to where it's not too much or too loose and not too hard. Keeps you feeling fuller for longer. We talked about this. Okay. This also goes a long way when it comes to weight management. Helps lower high blood pressures. We talked about the effect of fiber on our blood circulation. Studies show that eating enough fiber can help improve blood pressure in those people whose levels are high. Blood pressure being something, or hypertension being something, that's also very problematic and high at the top of the list when it comes to health problems, right? In America, with almost half of American adults suffering from elevated or high blood pressure, a condition that increases the risk of heart disease and stroke, the cardiovascular benefits of fiber shouldn't be overlooked. So, if majority of people don't get their daily fiber requirements, are we shocked that half the people in America are suffering from elevated or high blood pressure? Not that it's the only reason why, but we can see why. Too much processed foods, right? Because really, when you talk about processed foods, you're not only talking about fiber, you're talking about other problems. Nutrient deficiency, which is another problem, right? That's causing these health issues, these chronic health issues. We talked about cholesterol levels, right? Just going back to the blood, making sure the blood is circulating properly. Sugar spikes, we talked about diabetes. It says associated with lower risk of several diseases. What are those diseases? Heart disease. Number one issue in America is said to be heart disease. Well, no, not everybody, only 5% of men, 9% of women, numbers are probably lower than that, are getting enough fiber. Well, now I understand why heart disease is the number one problem in American health. Type 2 diabetes. So many people have diabetes in America. Wonder why. Fiber, something we can look at as a major contributor for lack of it thereof. Colorectal cancer. Okay. Heart disease is the number one killer of Americans, so the cardiovascular benefits of fiber are one of the most important. Additionally, about 1 in 10 Americans has type 2 diabetes, and colorectal cancer rates are on the rise. Okay, so it goes through here and tells us how much they suggest we should have, which are higher than the USDA for different ages. The older you are, you should have more fiber. But really, even 50 years and younger, it says 25 grams for women. It really should be really double that. So really, these numbers, you're looking at almost double. So you're looking at about 50. And so really, what you can do is focus on getting a fiber-rich food with every meal. And that way, you're not falling short on fiber. So we talked about having too much fiber and what comes with that. All right, so let's take a look here. Is there anything else before we move on? So let's move to our next video before we go into our next article. Our next video comes from Dr. Berg.
Let's talk about the 10 benefits.
the 10 benefits of fiber.
Let's talk about the 10 benefits of fiber. Now, when I'm talking about fiber, I'm talking about vegetable fiber. I'm not talking about grain fibers like bran or anything like that, but vegetables. And I do recommend, as part of a healthy keto lifestyle, you consume a good amount of vegetables, whether that's salad or other vegetables. Now, also on the flip side, there's certain times where I don't recommend vegetables. If you have SIBO or you have a history of a lot of digestive damage, that might make things worse. So you're going to have to test it out. But here are some benefits of fiber in general. Number one, fiber has a zero effect on insulin despite being a carbohydrate. Number two, it generally contains a lot of phytonutrients, like carotenoids, for example, and it also contains vitamins and minerals. Number three, fiber can bind to bile and help regulate the amount of bile in the body. I did a separate video on that. I'm going to put a link down below. Number four, it can help feed your microflora. In fact, the good bacteria in your large intestine eat fiber as their main source of food. And our bodies don't have the ability to digest fiber. Thank goodness we have bacteria that can help us out. And that fiber that is fed to the microbes then gives the microbes energy, and the byproducts that the microbes make when they ferment this fiber is called small chain fatty acids, which not only feed the colon cells, but they also help your blood sugars, they'll help insulin resistance, and they're even anti-cancer. All right, number six, it helps regulate your pH. When you feed these microbes, especially the lactobacillus, the pH can now be in the range that you need it to prevent pathogens from existing in that environment. Number seven, fiber helps the transit time as far as how fast things go through the digestive system. Number eight, fiber can help regulate lipids and cholesterol. Not that lipids or cholesterol is bad, but they help regulate it to some degree. And number nine, certain fibers have an anti-cancer effect, probably because they're loaded with phytonutrients and they're converted to small chain fatty acids. Number 10, fiber helps buffer the blood sugar response. So when you eat certain carbohydrates, whether it's a carrot or a celery or a tomato, the amount of fiber in that food greatly helps to minimize the glycemic response from that carbohydrate. All right, there you have it, the 10 benefits of fiber.
All right, so we see more benefits here of fiber, and we have this Science Direct. So this is a actual a very well established, scientific and medical research website here. So they have very, very good stuff that you can look at when it comes to health related topics. It says effects of dietary fiber on human health. It says dietary fiber is believed to provide important health benefits and it has become a research hotspot. Dietary fiber exists in most natural foods, including fruits, vegetables, grains, and so on. So typically, you're not going to find fiber in animal products, right? Fiber typically is something that's coming out of the earth. So it has different physiochemical properties such as water holding capacity, water swelling capacity, oil holding capacity, glucose adsorption capacity, cholesterol adsorption capacity, and viscosity, which make it exhibit different physiological functions such as reducing the risk of obesity, diabetes, cancer, and intestinal diseases. So let's keep going here. Talked about it reducing the risk of cancer. Dietary fiber is the edible parts of plants, which can be completely or partially fermented in large intestine with undigested and unabsorbable in the human small intestine. It is a sum of carbohydrates and their analogs, including non-digestible polysaccharides, oligosaccharides, and associated plant substances. It can be divided into soluble dietary fiber and insoluble dietary fiber based on its solubility in hot water. All right, let's keep going here. So, soluble dietary fiber is non-cellulosic polysaccharide, including oligosaccharides and some indigestible polysaccharides, inulin, Arabic gum, pectins, galactomannan, which we saw earlier as something that is used for weight control, a fiber, and beta glucans. And we're going to talk about inulin here toward the end of this broadcast. So, insoluble dietary fiber includes cellulose, lignin, and some hemocelluloses. And so the dietary fiber comes from, again, fruits, vegetables, grains, high viscosity. SDF is higher in apples, oranges, persimmons, pears, dried beans, cauliflower, carrots, and potatoes. Okay. Let's keep going here. Most IDF, which is the insoluble, is in grains. It says wheat, soybeans, mung beans, and oats. Are small in viscosity but have good swelling properties. So that's kind of what gives the stool its bulk and shape, is the insoluble fiber. Right? Because remember, the insoluble is not being ate by your bacteria in your gut. All right, let's keep going here. Has some different fruits that tells you the fiber content in these fruits, the vegetables, the different flowers. It says, with the rapid development of modern society, many patients with chronic diseases are dramatically increasing, meaning more and more people are starting to get chronic disease. Well, why is that? Because we're moving into an ultra-processed world where everything is ultra-processed for the sake of being able to put it on the shelf and for it to sit there until you consume it. And if it sits there and have a long shelf life, it must be ultra-processed. It must have a lot of stuff stripped from it. It must have a lot of stuff added to it in order for it to still be there and not to have, become perishable, meaning that it's become rotten or spoiled to where you can eat it. This is not food. So really, on a lot of ways, it is for, commercial purposes, corporate purposes, for the bottom lines. They're high profits. They put a lot of chemicals and stuff in it so that it becomes addictive to you to eat it, like potato chips and cereals and all this type of stuff. It says the incidence of disease is increasing year by year worldwide, which further leads to an increasing in mortality worldwide. So evidence suggests that daily fiber can participate in human metabolism to prevent and treat these diseases. Remember, fiber is said to be at the basis of all metabolic process. So these chronic diseases are breakdowns in human metabolism or the metabolic process. The probability of suffering from metabolic syndrome is reduced by 11% whenever you increase fiber intake, just by 10 grams. Right? Let's keep going here. So it shows a diagram here. Dietary fiber comes into the stomach. It says stimulate the secretion of gastric digestive juice, enhance gastrointestinal motility. Comes into the small intestine, resist the digestion and absorption of the human small intestine, so it doesn't get digested here. It then comes into the large intestine. Fully fermented fibers include beta-glucan, pectin, guar gum, acacia seaweed gum, and inulin, etc. Some fermented fibers include fiber crisp, hemicellulose, lignin, vegetable wax, and keratin, etc. So this is where in the large intestine, where the bacteria is majority, right? So here in the gut. And so this fiber is passing through these processes here, stomach, small intestine. It's not getting broken down. It gets to the large intestine where it gets broken down by the bacteria. But again, if you're not feeding the large intestine because you're not eating fiber, now you're going to start to have issues here. And it's going to start here and it's going to spread throughout the body. It says here, excreted after absorbing water and swelling. So from here, it then gets excreted out. So when it comes to being excreted out, if you're not getting the fiber, you're going to have problems, digestive problems. Also, it shows inside the large intestine. Here is your microbiome. Here goes the good bacteria. It must be fed. Regulate the gut microbiota and promote the production of SCFAs, the short chain fatty acids, which are said to help be anti-cancer, anti-diabetic. Okay. Very crucial for your health. We talk about feeding the large intestine here, this gut. If not, what are you going to deal with? Obesity, diabetes, cancer, intestinal disease, and many, many, many other diseases and problems. All right, let's scroll through here real quick. A lot of things we've already discussed, just continued confirmation through cross-reference. You all will get these links. You will be able to go through them on your own time. But for time, we're not going to be able to go through everything. So now, let's go to our next video by another doctor. We have Dr. Will Bosowicz, why it's important, fiber, why it's important and how to get more of it.
Hello and welcome to Zoe Shorts, the bite-sized podcast where we discuss one topic around science and nutrition. I'm Jonathan Wolf, and this week I'm joined once again by board-certified gastroenterologist and Zoe's US Medical Director, Dr. Will Bosowicz. And today's subject is fiber.
This is a topic that I love talking about. It's one of my great passions. Fiber is one of the most misunderstood nutrients, and despite its potential health benefits, the majority of people in the United States and the UK, they don't have enough fiber in their diets.
And I'm glad we could get the world's most passionate man about fiber onto this podcast, Will. So why aren't people eating enough fiber?
Well, we think there's a clear answer to this question, and there's also very solid research evidence to back it up.
Fantastic. So let's get started. And let's start with, what is fiber?
This may shock people. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate that the body simply isn't able to digest. And most carbohydrates, they're broken down by the body and they're made into their pieces, which is glucose, sugar. People have heard about this. Fiber can't be broken down into sugar molecules. And because of this, it passes all the way through your body undigested. And there's two main types of fiber that people need to know about. One is soluble fiber, and the second is insoluble fiber. Soluble means that if you were to put it into a drink and stir it, it would dissolve. And
Makes
research
sense. I guess
shows
that's why it's called soluble.
yeah, it's implicit, and it's nice when science actually the words make sense. So
doesn't always happen.
Exactly. So research shows that soluble fiber can lower our glucose levels and our cholesterol, and there's a number of other health benefits that we'll talk about.
And so what kind of foods can we find fiber in?
Well, the good news, Jonathan, is that fiber really is not hard to find. You can find fiber in plant foods. I mean, like literally all plants contain fiber. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, seeds, nuts, legumes. And then there's one exception to this rule, which are mushrooms. Mushrooms technically are not plants, they're fungi, but they can also be a great source of dietary fiber. And I'm sort of nominating them to be honorary plants because I think they're great and they also can provide these same benefits that you find in plants.
That's fantastic. My son often complains about all the plants that I want to give to him. And now I'm really like, eat the mushrooms. They're not even plants. So I'm going to use that now. Let's deal with maybe the elephant in the room when it comes to fiber. So I think a lot of people are listening to this and thinking, yeah, but fiber is really boring. It's that thing that you use to like regulate your bowel movements if you get constipated. And in fact, I remember back to, when I was speaking to doctors 20, 25 years ago who were gastroenterologists, and they told me, look, fiber is roughage. I remember that word that helps you to go to the toilet more often. And so I think for a lot of our audience, that's basically what they're thinking when they hear about this. So I think, can you clear that up?
I totally get it. I understand where people are coming from. Fiber has a boring reputation. This is the stuff that grandma would stir into her drink so that she could have a bowel movement. And so, we associate dietary fiber with having bowel movements, but it's actually far more complicated than that. Simply consuming fiber in our diet can actually have massive health benefits, and it's so much more than your bowel movements. So, what traditionally has been thought of as being boring, there is new science around fiber that has fiber sort of becoming this exciting new thing, and there's a renaissance occurring around fiber.
Well, look, Will, before everyone switches off this podcast because they're like, oh my God, I don't want to hear about fiber anymore. It's so boring. Tell me about why, in fact, this new science has you so excited.
Okay, I'm going to jump straight to my favorite fiber study of all time. This study had over 135 million person years of data. Think about that, Jonathan. Like humans have only been on the planet for 3 million years. So
it's amazing. It's an amazing amount of data.
Yeah, and it's great because it's taken the bias out of the equation. Like, let's not just cherry pick the study that tells us what we want to hear. Let's look at the whole picture. So here's what they found. When people increase their dietary fiber, they reduce the likelihood that they will be diagnosed with heart disease, several types of cancer. They are less likely to have a stroke, and they're less likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. And then the 58 randomized controlled trials. In these studies, they found that people who consumed more dietary fiber lost weight, lowered their blood pressure, lowered their cholesterol. These are risk factors for heart disease. So ultimately what we're talking about is that we can reduce our exposure to 4 of the top 10 causes of death in our countries by simply eating this boring nutrient.
This is pretty amazing, right? Because there are all these arguments about like which milk to use to go with your cereal where, we discussed this on a recent podcast and Sarah was explaining, the health impact of this is unknown. There's really no data to show the differences. And yet here the data on how fiber can actually extend your life is incredibly strong. So I think that is really striking just to stop for a minute and think about that. Now, beyond that, amazing results, what about other benefits of fiber? And I think there's a common thought, probably also with many of our listeners, that if you eat more fiber, you're going to feel fuller for longer. Now, is that true, or is this just another food myth?
No, this is true. Fiber can affect many different aspects of our body, including our metabolic health. And it certainly can affect how full we feel after a meal. It also improves our blood sugar control. It helps to regulate our blood lipids, and it also has an effect on our immune system.
And what about the effect that fiber has on our gut microbes?
It's a powerful effect. Dietary fiber is unique because we as humans, we lack the enzymes to digest fiber. But that doesn't mean that it actually just goes through the body undigested. What that means is that fiber makes its way to the large intestine without changing. And when it arrives there, this is where the gut microbes, that's where they live. It comes into contact with your gut microbiome, who have literally tens of thousands of enzymes specifically designed to break down fiber.
Which is sort of amazing, right? So what you're saying is we don't have any of that. And the enzymes are just like these special like scissors, aren't they, that sort of cut things up. That's as much as I understand. So we don't have them, you're saying. So it passes through us, unlike, the bread or, the oil or burger or whatever. We can break that down. But this fiber goes all the way through because we haven't got any of these. And then you're suddenly saying, wow, in my gut, I've got like 10,000 of these things that are sitting in my microbes waiting to break it up.
Yeah, I mean, the number is 60,000. That's how many unique enzymes they think these microbes have. And, like take this, for example. I mean, this is crazy. So I am a very large human. I am 6'4", so about 2 meters tall, and I weigh over 200 pounds, so about 100 kilos, a little less than 100 kilos. And I don't have these enzymes, but a single cellular bacteria that is invisible to the naked eye could have hundreds of these enzymes. So this is Mother Nature provides for us, but in a unique way where the gut microbes are basically supporting our body in a way that we're not able to do ourselves.
Well, as someone who's a lot less than 6'4", I feel good about the idea that, just being really big isn't always the optimal outcome. Will
there's advantages and disadvantages, Jonathan. So, we could do a pro and con on that, but nonetheless, these microbes, they use these enzymes to transform the fiber. And the fiber truly emerges as something different, which are called short chain fatty acids. Perhaps people have heard of butyrate as the classic short chain fatty acid. Butyrate ends up being this like amazing anti-inflammatory molecule, which is the primary source of fuel in your colon. It supports the good microbes. It actually directly suppresses the bad microbes. It repairs the gut barrier. So like people want to know, how do I fix leaky gut? I'm telling you right now. So this fiber is so good. This is why fiber is so good for our gut. And it's also why fiber is actually good for our entire body, because these short chain fatty acids don't just affect the colon. They actually spread throughout the entire body, and they have healing effects everywhere they go.
So it all sounds amazing, Will. Are there any downsides to fiber?
I mean, of course, we have to keep it real. So there are people who have digestive issues that will struggle to process and digest fiber. That's just being honest. And in that setting, they may experience gas and bloating and flatulence and perhaps abdominal discomfort. And my message to these people, what I want you to know is that you're struggling with the digestion of fiber because your gut has been damaged. And these microbes, they're struggling to keep up with what you're asking them to do. So it's just important to understand these limitations because they can be overcome. The benefits of fiber can be enjoyed by all. It's just that some of us need to work through a process to get there.
And I know that this is quite a big topic, but if we kept it really simple, what is that process? How would you approach this with a patient?
I would treat this like we're doing rehab for a bodily injury. So like pretend that you hurt your knee, Jonathan. You have choices on how you fix that problem. And one of them could be that you just stop walking permanently. But you would never do that because your knee would get weaker and so would the rest of your body. What you would do instead is that you would ultimately put yourself into a rehabilitation program where you challenge your knee ever so slightly, like not aggressively. And by challenging your knee, it slowly gets stronger and you incrementally increase the challenge until the knee is completely back to healthy. That's actually what we need to do with our gut when it comes to dietary fiber. If you struggle with dietary fiber, don't eliminate fiber. Start low and go slow. Reduce the amount of fiber intake that you have, and then slowly over the time, increase it. And what you'll find is you're able to tolerate more.
So does this mean it's as simple as saying the more fiber you eat, the better?
So generally, yes. But like all things in nutrition, Jonathan, we know that there is no one size fits all. Fiber is a very broad term describing many different types of fiber. So they're biochemically unique, and understanding like how our body is going to react to these unique forms of fiber is something that we are in the process of sort of working through.
And so fiber is so great. Why, in fact, aren't we all just munching down on much more of it?
At first, I don't think most people have heard the exciting new science with fiber that, talks about gut microbes and short chain fatty acids. I mean, if you're using the outdated information, you think fiber is boring, while I'm sitting over here basically saying fiber is damn sexy.
You have an interesting idea of what's sexy, Will. I think we also have to keep it real, right? A lot of unhealthy food just tastes amazing. And that's not by chance. If we're buying it from the store, it's probably being designed by some very smart nutritional scientists to just trigger, the exact bliss point, of sugar and fat. It's also going to give us probably like an immediate sugar rush. So these things are incredibly tasty. And, again, I always look at my kids, as soon as you start to open them up to these sorts of ultra processed foods, they quite reasonably don't want to eat any of the healthy food you've given them before. And they're 3, right? They're not thinking about anything other than what tastes best.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I've experienced that with my kids as well. It's like Pandora's box. Once they've had a taste, it's like if you bring it into the home, that's all they're going to want. So it can be quite challenging. Fiber-rich foods, the way that I see it in terms of the benefit is they're the ones that have you feeling great for hours. But they don't necessarily give you that like punchy, like, hey man, I felt great for 5 minutes, the way that you would with some of these ultra processed foods. But personally, I don't really like when my food leaves me feeling hungover.
So, Will, we covered a lot of ground here for a short. What's the conclusion? Is fiber that boring old nutrient we don't like to think about?
Fiber is exciting. Fiber is the new science that is unfolding. It's quite amazing, Jonathan, when I dig into the medical literature, how often you will see fiber and short chain fatty acids popping up in terms of being beneficial for our health.
So given all of this, we did a little research about how much fiber we actually are all eating. In the UK, the National Diet and Nutrition Survey says that Brits on average consume 18 grams of fiber a day. Intake in the US is slightly less at 16 grams a day. So equally bad, given the recommended daily intake is 30 grams. So it's quite a shortfall, Will.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I consider this a public health problem of the highest urgency. I mean, this is disturbing to me. But, the important thing that I want people to understand is that for those who are deficient in their fiber consumption, which frankly is most of us, they would really improve their health by increasing their fiber consumption. And that doesn't mean that there's any sort of hard rule of like how fast you have to increase it or how high it needs to be. You simply need to lean into this process of slowly increasing your fiber intake, and then your body can tolerate it, and also you're getting the health benefits that come from that.
Amazing. I think that's a wonderful place to end today. If you've enjoyed today's podcast and you're curious about what high fiber foods are best for you specifically, or if you just like to know more about your own body, do try Zoe's personalized nutrition program. You can get 10% off by...
All right. So a lot of good stuff to take away from that. And so what I want to do now is I want to go to the Bible and see so now we're going to start to look at getting fiber in our diets. Now that we've got the information on it, now let's start to look at where we should focus. But let's see what the Bible says first. We're going back to the book of Sirach, Ecclesiasticus. All right, let me find it here. Chapter 39. Verse 26 tells us the principal things for the use of man's life are water, fire, iron, and salt, flour of wheat, honey, milk, and the blood of the grape, and oil, and clothing. So here for GOCC Fit, we've been talking about health when we come back from hiatus. We started with what? Our first conversation back, we spoke about the superfood everyone should be consuming known as kefir. And in this instance, we're talking about milk kefir. So we're talking about initially you need milk, and then you have the kefir grains. So you're using the kefir grains to ferment the milk to make the milk more digestible, more nutritious, more powerful, more healing. But the Bible tells us that one of the things that is the principal things for the whole use of man's life is the milk. So we have that, and then we're supercharging it and making it into a superfood even more so with the kefir. What else did we talk about after that? Well, from there, we had land flowing with milk and honey. So we are continuing in with the milk, but also now bringing up honey. So we see honey being mentioned in Sirach 39:26 as another thing that is the principal thing for the whole use of man, right? So we see nutrient density. The milk is nutrient dense. The honey, nutrient dense. From there was one of the next conversations we had and discussions, a covenant of salt, right? A covenant of salt. And we see here in Sirach 39:26, salt also mentioned for a principal thing for the whole use of man's life. Unrefined sea salt, again, not the process, not the ultra process. We've already talked about that. We want stuff in its raw state. So we're talking about raw salt. Why? Nutrient density. So are we seeing a theme here? All this stuff is nutrient dense. All the minerals the body needs so that the cellular processes can take place and take effect, right? The healing, the cleansing of salt. So now we're talking about fiber, and we can look in Sirach 39:26 and also find some things that point towards the fiber as what we should be looking to consume that fulfills also some things here in verse 26. So let's bring it back up here. So what can we find here in this chapter and verse for fiber? Well, one of the first things we see here, it says flour of wheat. Now, a person may look at that and say, wait a minute, I thought you said no ultra process. Well, we're going to deal with that. So let's deal with it. While we're there, let us deal with that. We have mentioned, and you can look anywhere for this. We've talked about wheat berries before. You talked about wheat berries before. We've also talked about a website called Azure Standard. Now, you can get your wheat berries from anywhere, right? I think I've got them from multiple different places, but this is one of the places that is a kind of like an online farmer's market where you can order things and have it brought to close to your area and you can pick it up. But wheat berries, for instance, let's just type in einkorn, which is said to be the original wheat, right? Einkorn is said to be the original wheat. So here we see organic einkorn grain. So of course, Sirach 39:26 says flour of wheat. So we're going to deal with the flour part, but let's first deal with the wheat part. So now, einkorn. So before it's flour, it's grain or berries. So what we have here, it says Einkorn is the most ancient cereal grain. It says 1,000,000 years old according to the USDA research. Now, of course, we know there is no million years. Okay. So when you look at einkorn and you look at how many times there are chromosomes divided, would show that there isn't a grain that has a lesser amount of divided chromosomes than einkorn. So this is why it is thought of to be the most ancient grain, right? So this is the grain of choice that I would say if you're going to get a grain, you get this grain. And what you can do with the wheat berry is you can then mill it. So you get what's called a mill grinder. And then whenever you want to go make bread, you make your own bread, right? So that you know this it's not refined. So what Sirach 39 and 26 is talking about, it's not talking about the flour of our time. The flour of wheat in our time is not what they were talking about in that time, okay? It wasn't industrialized. It wasn't refined. They would take it in its whole natural state and they would mill it, stone ground it, things like this, to where it's not refined. And they would put it and make it into bread and eat it that way. Because when you do it this way, look at the ingredients on the back. Look at what you see here for dietary fiber. You see in one serving, 4 grams of dietary fiber, 16% of the U.S. daily value. So there's your fiber included in Sirach 39:26 with the flour of wheat, right? We have a fiber. You also see a high amount of protein, 9 grams. Very, very good. 32 grams of carbs. Now, when you're drinking the milk is going to be fats and protein. So you still need some carbs, but notice these carbs come with fiber. It only just doesn't come with fiber. Look what else it comes with. Minerals. Vitamins and minerals. You see this? Because it's not refined. So it's in its raw state. It's going to have the things remember the full equation. You want the full equation. And I will always, as a nutritionist, stress to people, you want to get your vitamins and your minerals from food as much as you can, because it's in its natural state, untouched by man, the way God created it. Your body can receive it that way. When you go outside of that, it's going to be tricky to get the vitamins and minerals that you're looking for. When you go outside of that and try to supplement, you have to know how to supplement in order to get the vitamins and minerals. But if you're getting it a lot through food, you don't have to worry about it as much when we talk about supplementation. And this is just one type of flour of wheat. Okay, but the thing of it is you know what you're getting. I know I'm getting these berries from a trusted source, and I can make my own bread. I can mill it down. You look up bread recipes. It's not that hard. Some bread recipes, you can do some flat bread, three ingredients: the flour, the water, the salt. You make flat bread. Whereas as you go to the grocery store, you see 100 ingredients in a loaf of bread. Heavily refined, ultra processed, no fiber, no minerals, no vitamins. This is coming straight out the ground, untouched. This is what we want, right? So here it is. And you can also look at other options. Another wheat option I like is Khorasan. Now, of course, these particular grains they don't work like typical flour works. So you're gonna have to play with the recipe to get it, tinker with it to get it how you want it to work with your recipes. Meaning you cannot just substitute it for regular flour and get the same results if you're making bread or whatever, biscuits, cakes, whatever the case is. You got to look at the ratios because you may have to substitute it and have different things in it to get the same result if you were using regular flour. But with this, you know what you're getting. Here is the Khorasan whole grain. And let's look at the nutrition facts. You can look at the actual history. It says it is an ancient relative of modern durum, semolina, wheat. Has a rich buttery flavor and chewy texture. 30% higher protein than wheat, so it's high in protein. Richer in magnesium, zinc, vitamin E. So you see how you're getting higher protein. You're getting your magnesium, your zinc, vitamin E, higher minerals, higher vitamins. Let's see what else. You can even eat this stuff as like cereal. You can, get warm milk, and it eats like cereal even. It says Khorasan is more nutritious than regular wheat due to a higher protein and potassium content. So when you go to these more ancient grains, then it's going to have more nutrition than the modern wheat because the modern wheat's been hybridized. So now we're talking about genetic splicing and just pollinating and all of that, crossing and all that type of stuff that takes it away from its more ancient natural state. Right? We're talking about how it's created this modern wheat. So what else do we have here? Let's look. Let's look at the dietary facts here. 8 grams protein. We see 4 grams fiber. Once again, lower carbs, 24 grams, lower than the einkorn. We also know that it's said to have, again, sometimes when you look at the nutrition facts, it doesn't tell you, the percentages properly. But if you're getting this from the ground, it's going to have a lot of vitamins and minerals in it that aren't going to show here in the nutrition facts. Okay, because it's coming from the dirt. As long as the dirt has these vitamins and minerals, it's going to have the vitamins and minerals. More so the minerals from the dirt. The vitamins more so come from the sun and the chlorophyll production and those type of things from the plant. All right, so Khorasan is another ancient grain. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of it, spelt. Another one, you can get the berries, you can experiment with the recipes. Ancient grain, higher levels. These ancient grains, you notice they all have higher levels of protein, whereas the modern grain is lower in protein. And spelt even has more fiber, 5 grams. Has the vitamins, has the minerals in it. So this is what the Bible's talking about when it talks about flour of wheat. You can even look at organic, red wheat. There are all different kinds of, you can get the organic kind. So here's the hard red wheat, organic. And it's going to have higher protein. This has 6 grams of fiber. It has minerals in it. See that? You also have, I believe, white wheat. I mean, there's so many different types that are organic. So make sure if you get it, it's organic. Also, the beautiful thing about these berries store forever for the most part. As long as you keep them in a dry place, away from bugs, it's grain that doesn't go bad. So it's long-term storage, food. You can put it on a shelf. You don't got to even worry about it. In a famine, you come to it, Just like Joseph, you got food. And there's many different ways that you can consume it. 6 grams protein, 6 grams fiber. You see that? Now, you don't want to get your fiber only from wheat flour. If you can help it. In the famine, you do what you got to do. But right now, I'm just showing you, according to Sirach 39:26, it's pointing to this wheat flour to let you know that it can sustain us. There's a lot of nutrition in here that can sustain us. It should be the foundation, because I would tell people, not to go the grain route unless you're doing this. If you're not doing this, don't even deal with the grains. Deal with the vegetables. We'll get to the vegetables here in a minute. You also have stuff like millet. There's another one. Another ancient grain. You buy it like this. Stores. You can mill. Use a mill grinder. 3 grams of fiber, 5 grams of protein. It's got the minerals in there. Okay. So these are just some of the ones I'll, mention. There are more, but for now, we have the flour of the wheat. And let's go back to 39:26. What else does it tell us about? And the blood of the grape. So grapes also, you're looking at fiber in the grape. Not just fiber, but with the carb, because grape is going to be a carb-based food. You're going to have fiber if you're getting it as a whole grape. If it's not processed, it's going to have some fiber in there. Make sure your grapes have seeds. Hard to find grapes with seeds in them. But try to find seeded grapes. These are 2 things that is going to help you with your fiber. Now, let's take a look at some other things on fiber for foods. 26 high fiber foods for gut health support on ancient nutrition. Ancient nutrition. What do we have? So did you know that an estimated 95% of American adults and children don't get the recommended daily amount of fiber in their diet? In part, it's because we simply don't eat enough fiber-rich foods, including not knowing what are the best high-fiber foods that we may also enjoy eating. This list below will provide just that. Okay? So we don't know what to eat, and we also are eating stuff that's ultra-processed, which strips what we would get through these nutrients out of our food. Fiber or roughage is a plant nutrient that is essential to our health, okay, including regulating our normal bowel functions and maintaining overall healthy cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Okay, so a lot of stuff we've discussed already. And so you start slow. If you're not eating a lot of fiber, you want to start slow, let your body get used to it, and then in time you can increase more. If you're dealing with something like constipation that fiber makes worse, then you need to get to a whole different conversation on constipation. But for some people, this may help your constipation. Okay. So, number 1, winter squash. It's not only high in fiber, it's rich in vitamins A and C, which support immune health in the skin. So you have butternut, acorn, delicata, kabocha, and spaghetti squash. Acorn squash is the highest in fiber. So you can make what's called an acorn squash soup, right? You can throw other stuff in there. Throw some beef up in there, some lamb, some other veggies, some other, herbs and high fiber foods in there. And you got you a high fiber meal. Maybe eat you some einkorn biscuits or bread with it. And again, something else I forgot to mention with the flour is one other hack to your bread: sourdough. Sourdough bread, which is a lot of what the bread in the ancients had with the sourdough bread. Okay, because the sourdough is fermenting. So just like the kefir, you want the fermented foods, because the fermented foods, they store better, they preserve better, because they're going into a state of breaking down and being digested. And so fermentation is the bacteria working in the food. Well, guess what? The bacteria in your large intestine also ferments the fiber that's coming in. So when you're eating fermented foods, not only are you getting the bacteria that's in the food, you're also getting the food broken down. So when the body gets it, there's less work the body has to do to digest. You're feeding the gut with bacteria, probiotics, and the fiber, prebiotic. So don't just eat regular bread. Look into the sourdough and do the sourdough bread. Okay? Sourdough bread from the wheat berries is the way to go. Just thought I mentioned that, forgot to mention that. So 1 cup of acorn squash contains 9 grams of fiber. So that's the most grams of fiber we've seen so far. Even all the wheat berries we've seen have not hit 9 grams. Guava, vitamin C, antioxidants, quercetin. All right, got some quercetin conversations coming up, hopefully at some point. But guava's got the quercetin in it, dealing with inflammation and oxidative stress. 8.9 grams per cup of fiber per cup of guava. Edamame, number 3. Plant-based protein, all 9 essential amino acids. That's big. You're going to get a protein, you want to make sure it's got all the essential aminos, because your body can't make those. So you focus on that. Also high in fiber, which supports digestion and helps you feel full longer. 1 cup, 8.1 grams of fiber. Bran. So this is where we talk about the whole grains. It's the outer layer of the whole grains. So what do we get with whole grains? B vitamins. Very, very important, because we also are super deficient in B vitamins as a society. And it's because of we're not getting them in the grain, because the grain is refined. What else? Iron, magnesium, another deficiency, other deficiencies of iron and magnesium. Okay. And antioxidants. High levels of fiber. So with bran, you have 7.2 grams of fiber per half cup. Legumes, packed with fiber. Vitamins, minerals. So we're talking about black beans, split peas, lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, and peas. Okay. You have 1/3 of a cup, 6.9 grams of fiber. Pomegranate, seeds, packed with antioxidants, vitamin C, potassium. How much fiber? 6.1 grams per cup. And what I would suggest is that you get most of your fiber from vegetables, right? You got to limit the fruit, because the fruit is high in sugar or carbs. So not that you cannot do the fruit, but you really want to more so seek the veggies for your fiber. Quinoa, complete plant-based protein, all 9 essential amino acids, rich in minerals, magnesium, iron, zinc. 5.2 grams per cup. Broccoli, cruciferous. These are the vegetables that you really want to focus in on because these vegetables are super healthy, lots of fiber. Broccoli, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, detox. 1 cup, 5.1 grams of fiber. Apples and pears, vitamin C and K. How much fiber? 4.4 grams of fiber for 1 Asian pear. Brussels sprouts, vitamin C and K, collagen, antioxidants, detoxification. 1 cup, 4.1 grams of fiber. Collard greens. I know we all like our collard greens, right? Vitamins K, A, and C. Now, the problem with eating cooked collard greens is that if you're cooking it, you're going to lose all your vitamins in the liquid. So you would pretty much have to drink the liquid to get those vitamins. So sometimes do this stuff raw so that you can get all the nutrients in it. 4 grams of fiber for every 100 grams of collards. Berries, antioxidants, amino acids, micronutrients, also fiber. We have 4 grams of fiber for 1/2 cup of raspberries. All right, we talked about the wheat, right? The good thing I like about Azure Standard, when you talk about getting some of these flours, they have it in pasta form. Like if you go to the einkorn, and you might be able to find the einkorn flour or pasta in your local grocery stores too. I know Sprouts is carrying a lot of einkorn pasta these days, but here is the einkorn pasta. So pasta made with einkorn flour, not the processed, refined GMO flour. It's going to be higher in protein, higher in dietary fiber. It's going to have the vitamins and minerals in it. Okay? That's what you want. We're talking about pasta. Let's see. What else? Sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes are going to be your potato of choice. Going to be more healthy for you than regular. High in vitamins A and C, manganese, most fiber of any tuber or any potato, 3.7 grams for 1 medium sweet potato. Corn, complex carbs, contains B vitamins, magnesium, antioxidants, 3.6 grams of fiber per cup. Make sure it's organic. Carrots, vitamin A, antioxidants, 3.6 grams per cup, has 3.6 grams of fiber per cup. Coconut, let's see, 6 times more fiber than oat bran. 3.6 grams of fiber per 1/2 cup of shredded coconut meat. Beets, folate, manganese, potassium. High in antioxidants, 3.4 grams per 1 cup of beets. Avocados, many nutrients. 3.4 grams of fiber per 1 avocado. Bananas, right? Loaded with nutrients, 3.1 grams of fiber per 1 medium-sized banana. Prunes, potassium and vitamin K, 3.1 grams of fiber per 1/4 cup. Prunes. Figs, great for blood pressure. 2.9 grams of fiber per 2 medium-sized figs. Seeds. So we have your chia seeds, your flax seeds, hemp seeds, all these different seeds, pumpkin seeds. 2.8 grams of fiber per 1 tablespoon, right? Your oats, 2.7 grams of fiber per 1/3 cup. Cauliflower, vitamin C and K, cruciferous vegetable, so it's going to support detoxification. 2.1 grams of fiber per 1 cup of cauliflower. Almonds, high protein, high fat, low carb. Vitamins, minerals, 1.7 grams of fiber per 11 almonds. All right, so these are some of the ways that you can look to incorporate these foods, have some diversity. Don't just eat one thing. Get a diversity of these things in your diet. The more diversity, the better your health. So now we dealt with that. I want to now deal with supplementation. So if you were to supplement with fiber, what would be the suggestion there? Well, got a video here from Dr. Pradip.
Hey, there's one thing you should be able to.
Let's talk about the fiber we should be supplementing with for, adding to our regimen of supplements.
Hey, there's one thing you should be able to do right now to improve all your health right now, and your kids and your family and everybody, is increase your fiber intake. And know that it's working through your microbiome. So all my cardiac patients, I put them on inulin. Inulin is a soluble fiber. It belongs to the fructans, and it's from onions and garlic and artichokes and leeks, and it's made from that. It's a white powder, soluble fiber. So this is stuff that you put in water, it's soluble. You can't see it. It's not that metamucil thick stuff that I give patients, right? That's totally different. This is soluble fiber, and I give it to all my patients. And they all come back to me and say, first couple of days they get gas. After that, they're fine. The sugar levels come down. The weight start coming down. The insulin levels start coming down. They start sleeping better. I say, I'm just giving you soluble fiber and you start sleeping better. The gut feels better. They start losing the weight. The metabolic syndrome seems to get better. So I give them that.
Say that again.
There's one thing you should be able to do right now to improve all your health right now, and your kids and your family and everybody, is increase your fiber intake. And know that it's working through your microbiome. So all my cardiac patients, I put them on inulin. Inulin is a soluble fiber. It belongs to the fructans, and it's from onions and garlic and artichokes and leeks, and it's made from that. It's a white powder, soluble fiber. So this is stuff that you put in water, it's soluble. You can't see it. It's not that metamucil thick stuff that I give patients, right? That's totally different. This is soluble fiber, and I give it to all my patients. And they all come back to me and say, first couple of days they get gas. After that, they're fine. The sugar levels come down. The weight start coming down. The insulin levels start coming down. They start sleeping better. I say, I'm just giving you soluble fiber and you start sleeping better. The gut feels better. They start losing the weight. The metabolic syndrome seems to get better. So I give them that.
So inulin, we're talking about fiber and all the benefits. How about you sleeping better by getting fiber? In this case, inulin. Let's talk about this inulin here. Off of Healthline, health benefits of inulin. Inulin is a soluble dietary fiber with positive effects on the gut microbiome. It is thought to help with regulating fat metabolism and blood sugar, as well as easing constipation and depression, for example. Okay, so again, constipation is tricky, but in a lot of instances, inulin can help a person who's dealing with constipation. And who's not going to be depressed dealing with constipation? So understand, if your microbiome is happy, you're going to have a different mood. Your mood is going to be more joyful, more happy than depressed. Happy bacteria, you know, happier emotions. It's amazing how when your bacteria is doing good in the gut, how your mood is more positive, is more happy, more joyous. Plants naturally produce inulin and use it as an energy source, and it's found in 36,000 different plant species. It's considered a prebiotic and is often added to more and more food products because of its benefits and adaptability. So, sources of inulin: Jerusalem artichoke, probably the top choice for inulin. Chicory root, onions, garlic, barley, dahlia. So you can simply get a lot of inulin in your diet just by adding in things like onions and garlic to your food. Right? When you add onions and garlic in a lot of your food, when you're cooking or your salads and stuff like that, you're adding inulin. We're going to talk about supplementing it as well. With its creamy consistency, inulin can work as a fat substitute in margarine and salad dressings. It's also used to replace some of the flour in baked goods and is often sourced from chicory root and Jerusalem artichoke in particular. What are the benefits? High in fiber, low in calories. Keeps you full of fiber. So we're talking about slowing down digestion, making you feel fuller, increases fullness, reduces cholesterol absorption as it passes through the digestive tract. Okay, and promotes digestive health. So 15 to 36,000 species of bacteria, only a small amount of that can be harmful bacteria. And so we want this good bacteria to be fed and be happy. So inulin stimulates some of these bacteria to grow. So we're talking about bifidobacteria and lactobacilli. Inulin aids digestion by increasing the number of these good bacteria in the gut. These bacteria, this is what these bacteria do: fend off unwanted pathogens. So the bad bacteria, the bad stuff that doesn't belong in your body, it's going to help fend it off. Prevent infection, so that you don't want something to happen health-wise, internally or externally, where you become infected. It's going to help prevent that, right? These bacteria stimulate your immune system. So when we're not feeding this bacteria, these are the problems that we're now going to face or have the potential to face now. Also adds bulk to your stool and increases the frequency of your bowel movements. Okay. Even though it slows overall digestion, it can still increase your elimination. It also enables your body to better absorb nutrients from the food you eat. So it doesn't make any difference if you're eating all these nutrients and you can't absorb them. So this fiber and these bacteria work together to absorb and utilize these nutrients so that the body can be distributed to the body where it's needed. Also said to have better absorption of calcium, controls blood sugar, could potentially lower your colon cancer risk, because if you're not having issues with your digestive system, then you're not going to have typically issues with your colon, right? May improve depression symptoms. And sometimes this depression can come from other bad bacteria that are existing in the body that cause us to feel bad. So we're going to talk about the inulin supplements here in a moment. Negative effects, not really any negative effects said to have come from taking inulin. But again, if you're taking too much of anything, never a good thing. Excessive flatulence and loose stools is said to happen with taking too much inulin. Let's see. So takeaway: food found naturally in many plant species. Inulin is a soluble dietary fiber that positively impacts the gut microbiome. You can also consume it as a supplement. It is believed to regulate fat metabolism, manage weight loss and blood sugar levels, and reduce the chance of colon cancer and even diminish symptoms of constipation and depression. Drinking plenty of water and building up your intake gradually can help you avoid any digestive issues like bloating, diarrhea, or constipation. So, this is a supplement that I would say that you could look to add to your regimen, your health regimen. You can go anywhere online and look. Here we are on Amazon. If I typed in inulin and search, you get different powders that pop up. Typically, what I like to do is look for high ratings with a high number of votes. So I'm not just looking at the rating, I'm also looking at how many people vote. What's the most popular form? Like, what are people buying? What companies do I like? What companies are trusted? Have a good reputation. Okay, so there's different ones out here. Now seems to be pretty, says overall pick. It's a pretty good brand, trusted brand, but around for a long time, has the most votes with the 4.6 rating. Nourishes friendly bacteria. Inulin, a fructooligosaccharide, is a soluble prebiotic fiber that is resistant to digestion and reaches the large intestine essentially intact. Very low glycemic index. Adds a mild sweetness to food and drinks, but has a very low glycemic index. So it doesn't affect glucose levels. Also helps with the production of short-chain fatty acids that nourish the cell lining in the colon. Inulin thus helps to maintain intestinal health and function. And then you can come down here to the reviews, see what people are saying about not only inulin, but also the brand that you're looking to get. Okay. So we've gone over the foods, where you can find it. This is now supplementation. We've discussed pretty much all things fiber, at least if nothing else, giving you a good overview, something to build upon when it comes on your understanding of fiber. So now that we've done that, we will spend about 15 minutes for Q&A. If you have any questions on the topic of discussion for tonight, fiber, if you have any other questions on anything else, nutrition related, you see the number there below, 214-519-8067. You can text or call in, and we will take your questions. All right, for about 15 minutes. And if we don't have any questions, then that's fine too. We can conclude and let everybody get back to their Friday evening and Sabbath. Any questions? You see the number there? Text in, call in. I know it's about a 15-20 second delay, and it may take time for people to either text or call. So we'll wait here a few minutes to see if we have anything or anybody. Someone asked, do I know where they can get MSM? I believe Elder Rawchaa has MSM on his website, keysupplements.com. Let me take a look here. I see a post on his website. I don't know if he has the MSM. Sometimes I know products come and go. You can check his website, or you can just check the internet and just do a search for MSM and just look for things that are trusted brands, highly rated, lots of votes, third party tested. That's what I look for when it comes to looking for supplements. So someone asked, have I ever heard of fire cider? I heard it was a good source of fiber as well. Yes, I have some fire cider, and I'm not sure about it being a source of fiber. I'm not saying that it's not, but I just don't know. I have some, I've used it, but I just have not done a full deep dive investigation on fire cider. So something to look into to see if it is a good source of fiber. Someone asks, what are the sweeteners I use? What do I think about allulose as a sweetener in drinks and foods? Very good question. So it's interesting you speak about allulose, because recently, with me getting the inulin and adding it to my health regimen, I also am using allulose. So I bought it for the first time too. So yes, allulose, 0 carbs, but it's a sweetener. And it comes from different types of fruit like kiwi. I can't remember if it was monk fruit or jackfruit, but it comes from different fruits and it's 0 carb. So it doesn't affect the blood sugar. And so you can use it as a sweetener. Now, from what I'm understanding is it's not as sweet as sugar, so you have to use a little bit more. But something I've been doing, I've found a recipe for kefir with my kefir. So what I've been doing is I've been adding allulose and the inulin in my kefir. So of course with the kefir you're getting the bacteria, but you need to feed the bacteria. So I add the allulose and the inulin to actually help feed the bacteria. And then when I drink it, I'm getting the probiotics and the prebiotic together in one drink. So aside from the allulose, I would say organic, I believe is it grade A maple syrup, or is that grade B? You want to get the organic maple syrup right? Organic, meaning it's coming from a tree, not something they made, no telling how they made it. So you get the organic maple syrup. There are different kinds out there. They got them, sometimes at stores. And the reason I like the maple syrup, because the maple syrup has minerals in it, electrolytes, potassium, magnesium. So I like the maple syrup because of its naturalness, as well as the nutrients and the mixability. Because typically maple syrup is very thin, so it's easy to mix. Honey is good, but honey, you have to almost use honey with heat, and I really don't like to heat honey because of the enzymes. So if I'm gonna do honey, I like to do honey more raw. So honey's a little bit trickier to use for a sweetener, but I like maple syrup. Just for different reasons, you got to use it in different ways. So depending on what you're using it for, you got the maple syrup, you got the honey. Something else that I've used in the past is agave, but I'm more so leaning towards the honey and the maple syrup because of the nutrients in there. So those are the kind of the main ones I'm using. I do have some organic, like turbinado and brown sugar, the raw cane sugar and stuff like that, and I do use that sometimes. When I do my water kefir, I use the turbinado now, but I have used the regular organic brown sugar for my water kefir. So this depends on what I'm using it for, but I try to get it in its most raw form when I'm using these particular sweeteners. So I kind of use them all for different things. Right now, I'm using allulose and inulin for my in my kefir. All right, hope that answers that question. Someone asked earlier about using collard greens, eating them raw. Absolutely. You can absolutely eat collard greens raw. Let's see. Any other questions? What do I pair with raw collards? Eat it in a salad. Just, throw it in your salad. That's the easiest way I know how to eat it. I don't use white sugar. Someone asked, passion fruit has fiber. I mean, all vegetables and fruit have fiber. It's just that some have more fiber than others. So I haven't seen anything for passion being at the top of the list. So not that you can't do passion fruit, but again, you want to limit your fruits. You want to limit the fruit. So you can do passion fruit every now and then to get some diversity of passion fruit's a little bit difficult to find and eat than your typical fruit. So let's see if there's any other questions here. Someone says, is this safe for kids? I think maybe you're talking about inulin. If you're talking about inulin, I would say it is because it comes from food. Again, it's just you got to think about the amount per kid. What you give to a kid versus what you give to an adult. Typically, with the inulin, I think you're doing like 5 grams or a scoop per serving. So for a kid, I don't know if you would do that same amount or half the amount, but it is it's a food supplement. So let's see. All right. So I believe that answers our questions. I don't see any calls. This concludes our live stream for all things fiber. I pray that it's been edifying for you all. I pray that you are taking your health serious. You're looking at the foundational things when it comes to health and making sure that these things are in your everyday nutritional regimen and routine. Get yourself in the best possible health that you can be in. Make sure that you are, keeping these things stored up in your storehouse. A lot of this stuff, like I said, it stores long term, like your raw honey, infinite shelf life. Your grain berries pretty much have an infinite shelf life. Salt, as long as it's kept in a dry place, infinite shelf life. So, a lot of the stuff that Most High created for us can be there for a long time for us to get to when we fall on famine times. So get this stuff in your body, get this stuff in your storehouse. We do have a call. It's like someone just called in. Who was that? 630 area code. Shabbat Shalom. You're live.
Shabbat Shalom. Okay, yeah. Hi, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, this is a little bit off topic, and it's only because I'm out of town, and so because I'm out of town, out of the country, it's so much cheaper to get some of my medical stuff done, and so I'm going to be getting my mercury out of my mouth finally. Yay! All praises.
That's definitely a blessing.
That is a blessing to be able to take that out. The only thing that I'm worried about is like the after effect, or if anything like accidentally gets into my digestive system. What could I take now until my appointment and after my appointment that will help my gut microbiome in case any of like a small particulate of mercury that gets down into my digestive system?
So it's interesting you say this. I got the metal removed out of my mouth a little over a year ago. So I went to a holistic dentist, and what they did for me was before I had the process done, they gave me chlorella and spirulina.
Oh, good. I found spirulina here.
Yeah, so
Spirulina and chlorella.
So I took that right before they went to work. They used ozone. The machine in the area I was in, because what happens is when you're removing this metal out of your mouth, it produces gas. There's a gas exchange that happens. So they wanted to make sure that the gas in the air was neutralized. They used the different, I think like different things for washing my mouth out while they were working. Some type of I don't know if it was spirulina water or something. It was natural to help. But afterwards, they had a whole regimen for me to do to make sure that I protect my liver from the heavy metal damage and things like that. So they had me on fish oil.
Okay.
So I had some type of, I can't remember the exact brand I used for fish oil to protect the liver. Make sure it's kosher.
Okay.
Make sure that, maybe third-party tested fish oil. Or you can look also into definitely eating a lot of beef tallow. All right.
Okay.
Beef tallow and the ghee and the grass-fed butter and those type of things is good to make sure you're consuming a lot of that. Also, they had me on a tincture of it was the cilantro tincture.
Okay, there's a lot of cilantro here.
Cilantro helps with the pulling out of the heavy metals. So cilantro tincture. They also had me on the glutathione. So basically, I think it was what's it called? NAC is called.
I left that at home. No, I haven't found that here. Oh, I have that at home. Okay, so that I have at home. Okay.
I think they gave me like some. It's called lysomal glutamine, but I would just say NAC Let me look at this.
Yeah, I got the Now brand. That's the one I have. Okay.
Liposomal is they told me to take some liposomal glutathione. So that's what I was taking. So that, which, NAC is similar to that. What else did I do? They something else that's good for chelation is zeolite.
Okay.
You also have stuff like activated charcoal, bentonite clay.
Okay.
You have diatomaceous earth. So these things are going to grab all that out of your body and pull it out. You don't take all of that. Between the zeolite, diatomaceous earth, bentonite clay, activated charcoal, you really only need to take like one of those things.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? I would probably say for about 2-3 weeks after the procedure, and that's just going to help make sure that you're getting the stuff out. It's being pulled out of the body,
Okay.
and that's what I did.
All right.
And they had some type of thing where they showed me on my hand the different areas on the hand. There's kind of like acupuncture where I use a red light, and the red light I would aim it at a certain part of the hand, and it's supposed to stimulate that organ, so that organ operates for detoxification. So they had that for me as well. But I'd have to pull that sheet out to kind of remember how I did that. But that's definitely good. You're getting that out of your body, because that stuff in your teeth is leaking every day and just wrecking your health.
Okay. I actually earlier, I actually went to like a massage place, and they had like, they put me on a table, and it had like the machine massage, but it had the infrared therapy and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, I feel so much better after that. Okay. So I don't know if they're going to have that infrared thing that you said. Okay. All right. And then, okay, so what I did buy while I am here, I bought, because I was able to find like a whole bunch of stuff. I like got royal jelly. I got propolis. I got, I got colloidal silver. And then they had some like, they said it was like, they had like copper and gold, and then they had the colloidal silver. So I got like one with the mixture of all three of them, and then the colloidal silver all by itself. I'm just like, okay. So I'm just like, okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find everything on that list, but some of that stuff, I got it. I got like more than half of that list at home when I get back. Okay. So, and what were the after effects that you felt did you feel any after effects from that, or because there was such good preventative stuff?
Yeah, I don't recall any issues. Nothing that stood out to me. If I did, I didn't. Nothing stood out. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as long as you're doing those things, you should be good. Supplement with the chlorella spirulina before you go in there, and then just afterwards continue with the stuff: chlorella spirulina, the cilantro, the zeolite's very good. Those things, the omega-3s, which you can get that from the beef tallow.
Oh yeah, I can definitely find that here, no problem.
Or the fish oil, stuff like that. So.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Oh, and if you can also that Now brand thing. So that location where they produce that and where they distribute that's really close to where I live. And like I said, I came here on family emergency. And so my boss was very unhappy with me with that. And so he basically fired me. And I'm just like, oh, it's okay. I know Ahaya is going to give me another opportunity. And I was thinking about applying for the Now company, because it's like I could ride my bike there, or I could walk there. Like that's how close it is. And I would, I want to give our people the hookup, if I could get the employee discount and help our people, why not help my tribesmen? So can you just put a prayer out there for that? If that be Ahaya's will, may the doors open for me.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Sister Yakal. I'm from the Chicago body.
Okay, well, absolutely, we'll keep that in prayer, and that would be definitely good to get in there because they're a good company. I've bought a lot of their products over the years.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. All right. Well, it's a lot for your time, and thank you for so much. The ministry, everybody, leadership. All
right.
praises to
Blessings.
Rawchaa that inspires you guys and just enlightens you guys like that. All praises to Ahaya Yeshaya.
Absolutely. All praises. Blessings. Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Thanks. Bye.
Someone asked about licorice root tea. Yes, licorice root tea, licorice root supplements. We actually have licorice root in some of our tincture formulas. So yes, licorice root, definitely very, very powerful herb for a lot of different things. Someone asked about, let me find it, water kefir. Where can I get it? Well, you want to get the water kefir grain. So I showed Azure Standard earlier for the wheat berries. I got my water kefir grains from Azure Standard, but you can get them anywhere. Just go online and type in water kefir grains on an internet search, and you can just search the internet for your water kefir grains and just follow the instructions that come with the grains on how to do it. You probably want to go online, look on YouTube, look at some water kefir videos and see how it's made, so you kind of know how to go about dealing with the water kefir. All right. Let's see. Try to get through the rest of the questions here before we conclude. Yeah, you want to get any type of metal out of your mouth, especially the heavy metals like the mercury, lead fillings and caps and all that. You want to get that. Find a holistic dentist and look to get that out of the mouth. Yeah, bentonite clay is for detox. It's for pulling stuff out of the body, primarily heavy metals. Someone says, if you've been exposed to a lot of radiation from X-rays, CTS, and MRIs, is there a type of detox we can do? The grapefruit flush detox. Go to the, you can either go on Patreon, but look for grapefruit flush detox, or you can go to Root of David Fitness Rumble channel for the grapefruit flush detox recipe. You can also look at iodine supplement, Lugol's iodine. You can look at CMOS and bladderwrack, nori, all the different seaweeds that are high in iodine that can help deal with the radiation. Someone says, where can I get it? The grapefruit flush? Yes. Patreon, A Gathering 144 on Patreon, or Root of David Fitness on Rumble. You can find the grapefruit flush detox video that breaks it all down. Let's see. Someone says, what would you recommend to fight inflammation on a high level? It depends on what inflammation we're talking about. Inflammation where? What part of the body? Internal, external? Depends on what you are saying when you're talking about inflammation. Someone says, how do you curb your appetite? Well, tonight we learned that fiber is very good at curbing your appetite. So lots of high fiber rich foods. That's a good place to start for the curbing your appetite. Knees. Someone says the inflammation in the knees. Well, ice is very good for inflammation, especially for the knees. You want to look at trying to see what's causing the inflammation. So that might take an examination by a specialist to take a look and see, diagnose wise, what they can determine what is causing the inflammation. Because inflammation can come from a lot of different places for a lot of different reasons. One thing that's helped me with inflammation, primarily in the gut, is the kefir, the milk kefir. So milk kefir is able to help on a lot of different levels. Ozonated olive oil can be used for inflammation. We have that, rooteddavid.fitness, the ozonated olive oil. If you have that, you can put that on your knee for see if it'll help with the inflammation. The problem with the knee is that you're probably walking a lot. So if you're walking, then you're just kind of continually causing the inflammation to keep coming. There's also red light therapy wraps that you can look to buy for the knee. They're a little bit more on the pricey side, but the red light therapy is supposed to help with cell regeneration and healing and things like that. So supplementation, MSM, the glucosamine are some supplements that are said to help. Possibly some collagen supplementation can potentially help with helping out there with the knee as well, or inflammation. Yes, limiting carbs, not just sugar, but limiting carbs in general. Limiting the carbohydrates in general can help with inflammation. Also, lumbrokinase or serapeptase, those deal with inflammation, because inflammation is it's a lipoprotein. So the lumbrokinase and the serapeptase, the different enzyme ACEs, will help with breaking down that fibrin and that lipoprotein. And so it can help break up a lot of that inflammation as well. Sea moss is said to help with inflammation. Also, yes, golden milk. So turmeric, absolutely, for the inflammation. You can look to do turmeric. I would suggest getting the turmeric raw. You can either juice the turmeric, or you can put it in a tea. You can simmer it, medium heat, medium low heat on simmer. You can just chop it up real fine, throw it in some water, make a tea out of it. You can drink that. You can look to take turmeric pills. Yes, turmeric also can help with inflammation, but typically you want to try to find the root problem, because if you're just dealing with the inflammation from the surface, it's going to continue to keep growing from the root. So you want to try to find what the root problem is so that you can fix it to where the inflammation stops, versus just managing the symptoms of the inflammation. All right, brothers and sisters. So this concludes our all things fiber discussion, our GOCC Fit for this week. We'll look to have another GOCC Fit soon, most high willing. Look to be back for another Friday night broadcast soon as well. I want to thank you all for all of your support, your prayers for Friday nights, this church. We could not do it without you all. I pray that everybody's taking their health serious, putting their best foot forward when it comes to their health, learning. Nobody knows your health better than you. So what we try to do here is give everybody a broad foundational, of things that can be used to help improve your health, that you continue to learn, and as we learn together. Until next time, here for GOCC Fit and the Gathering of Christ Church, I want to say God bless and Godspeed. Shabbat Shalom.